Hello. Since the last video that I've posted, I've had some feedback. The first one is the mic. I'm now wearing the mic, so I hope that my voice is a lot clearer. And another one is a couple of comments mentioning interests in magic stories where magic has been experienced. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that have happened throughout life, and more so since 2011, since the complete turnaround of the story from this expression. And I do think that sharing stories of magical experiences and mystical experiences can sometimes give listeners the, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really permission, but inspiration to know that the field is full of potential possibilities and that all things truly are possible. So the first story that came to mind was one, and it was in 2012 or 2013, but it was when I'd first become a Zumba fitness instructor. And a lady approached me and asked me if I would do some classes for her. And so prior to that, she'd had an appointment or a booking to do some Zumba in the park. And my mentor at the time, who was mentoring me, she came along. And in a nutshell, I had an iPhone. Now I've iPhones are like champagne glasses. You know, if you drop them, they shatter. And the iPhone was being used to transmute the music from the phone into something called a boombox, a music boombox. So I took the cover off the phone and I'd plugged it into the boombox, and I've done all this dancing, you know, and families were joining in, little children and their mothers. It was a lovely day. And we've come to the end of the Zumba session. Now, my mentor, she had her handbag, she had her own bits and pieces, her own mobile phone, her own bottle of water, and she'd kindly offered to hold my big, sort of like, it wasn't really a handbag, it was more like a travelling bag because it had all my Zumba stuff in there, my CDs and, you know, my sweatshirts and so forth. So she'd volunteered to hold that. On top of that, she was holding my tracksuit jacket. So her hands were pretty full. And at the end of the Zumba in the park, I'm laughing because I don't know if you're going to accept this story, but there was witnesses. At the end of the dancing, I've got my mobile phone and I haven't put the case on it because my hands are full. And the woman I was with, she gave me loads of flyers. So I've got all these flyers. I've got the mobile phone. I've got a bottle of water. I've got bits and pieces in my hand. And all of a sudden, in slow motion, I watched my phone slipping out of my hand. And I was like, oh no. And then my mentor's hand caught the phone and I took it from her. I said, you are an amazing human being. How did you do that? And my mentor is stood like this. She's got her arms folded. She went, do what, dear? I said, how did you catch the phone? She went, I didn't, you did. I said, no, I dropped it. I saw her hand, her nail varnish, the shape. It was her hand. I saw her hand catch the phone. And she's looking at me. She said, I didn't catch anything. She said, I was thinking the same thing. Amanda's amazing. She could have dropped that phone, but how quick. Her hand just came and caught the phone. So we are arguing. We're not arguing, but we're discussing. Hold on a minute. No, it was your hand. She said, no, it was not me. And it couldn't have been her. But the woman who I'd come to do the sessions with, she was stood there silent watching the two of us. She saw the third hand catch the phone. It's just magical. I mean, that's probably an extreme magical. Another thing that another time, this is what I call magical. I call this magical in the sense of the love of God. When I lived in a studio flat, I couldn't have a washing machine. There was no space because it was just like a little box room. There was no space for a washing machine. So I got used to using a local laundrette. And I'd been going there for months. And I always used to sit in really the same seat because he only had like 3 seats and they were in front of the washing machines. And he did have a chair, the owner, he had a chair by the front door, but it was awkward because every time somebody came in, you had to move your legs. Wasn't a very ideal place to have a chair and not an ideal place to sit. So for weeks and months, I'm using the laundrette and I'm sitting in the same place. And one day, I remember um, I was practicing Christianity and I used to pray in tongues quite a lot. And what I used to experience praying in tongues is intuition used to be really loud, really, really loud. And a lot of the time, the intuition would just spontaneously cause the body to take an action, and it would always be, oh my God. And on this particular day, I'd gone to the laundrette, and I remember I've been praying in tongues on the morning. I'm sat in the laundrette, and then all of a sudden, I felt the intuition. I was like, oh God. And I'd gone to the laundrette, and I went to sit down in the normal seat, and I just knew I had to sit by the door. And I remember sitting there, and I knew this was intuition, and I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? Because that's not the choice that I would have chosen. I would never have sat there because it wasn't ideal. Anyway, as I'm sat, I noticed a lady pulled up, and she pulled up outside the laundrette, and I think she was on her mobile phone, and she was taking like bin liners out of the boot of her car that had what looked like laundry. You could see that there were clothes. And she had some leggings on. And as she leaned over, you could see that, I don't know how to say this in the most polite way, but she was going through the monthly cycle, and you could see her underwear, you could see the padding. And I remember sitting there and thinking, oh, I must, just let her know because it can be embarrassing. Intuition wouldn't let me talk. I had to just sit. And I'm just sat there. I just knew something. I don't know what this is. You can sort of like feel the stirring of it. And then all of a sudden, the lady's walking towards the door, and from nowhere, I got catapulted out of the chair, and my hand went onto the handle, and I flew the door open for her. And she looked at me. She said, "Oh my God, how did you know?" And I didn't say anything because I didn't know anything. She said, "I'm currently going through a miscarriage." She said it started last night and it's still happening now. How did you know? Thank you. God bless you. Oh my God, the humility, the compassion, the we can get when the mind is predominant, the mind thinks it knows what should be said or what should be done, or it's just full of opinions, but based on personhood. Now, I'm not telling everybody to run off and start praying in tongues, but that was one of the tools that was gifted to this body mind that was enjoyable to do, that really stirred up and woke up intuition. Um, and a lot of the intuitive, a lot of the time, intuition, I knew it was intuition. It would just take over this body. I remember when another magical time was when I was working as a support worker many years later after that incident. I've just spoken about all that story. I don't really like to call it an incident, that magical, compassionate story. And there was a service user. A service user is somebody who uses the services of supported accommodation. And there was just so much compassion, and it was really impersonal because she was, oh God, nobody could get through to her. She was going to do her thing anyway, but all I could see was this heart. She had the most beautiful heart. She was just going in the wrong direction in life. And Oh God, I loved her so much. Not, it wasn't. I mean, the beauty of this story is her behaviour was really, challenging, and so there was nothing lovable about her actions. And thank God, because she come to realise that it was being to being. It was being. It just was. It never could have been anything else. And she was quite poorly. Um, psychologically, she would obey the mind. She'd become the mind. The mind would say jump, she'd say how high, and she'd gone missing. We hadn't seen her for a while, so she'd left the accommodation, but she didn't leave with anybody's blessing. She kind of went off to, you know, live a bit of a unstable, bit of a crazy life, a bit risky. And I just knew intuitively, I knew that she's okay. And every so often I would check in and I'd say, no, she's fine. I just knew, that there's just a knowing. And one day I was at work and the intuitive sense, I said, something's not right. Something's not right with her. So I called her CPN, which is community psychiatric nurse. Now, normally you can't get through to the CPNs. One ring and she'd answered. And I said, oh, hello, and I mentioned her name. I said, have you seen? And I mentioned the person. She said, Amanda, are you an angel? I said, no, I'm not an angel. Really, I'm not an angel. She said she was admitted into hospital and she was crying, saying, I don't think Amanda will ever let me come back. And she said, oh my God, can you call her? So I gave her a ring and, she realised, some of the things that she'd done. And I said, listen, it's okay. This is what the company is here for, to help people who need support with daily living and coping with mental health and so forth. So she came back and then she disappeared again. A few months later, again, I'd asked some of the other service users if they'd seen her in the area, and nobody had seen her. And I said, something's not right. I don't know what it is. I wasn't panicking, but I said, something's not right. Anyway, the next day, I've got in my car, and from my home, I can take two routes to the destination. And the quickest route was if I merged to the left. So I've gone that way only to find out that one of the lanes were closed and I was sat in traffic that would normally take 6, 7 minutes, 45 minutes. And I said, never again. I'm not doing this again. Not doing this again. So literally, it was like we were crawling going forward just because one lane was closed. So when I'd got into work, I'd vowed, that's it. I am not taking that route, at least for another 2 weeks until the roadworks have been done, because it was the better of the two routes. So again, I've gone in and I've asked the service users, has anybody seen this person? They said, no, we haven't seen her. We haven't heard nothing, which is, I said, something's not right. Anyway, I couldn't do anything about it. I wasn't led to make any phone calls or anything. I just left it. And the following day, which was a Saturday, I had to go into work to do something. And so I said, right, I'd already made up my mind. I'd made up my mind. I am not going that way. I'm going to merge to the right this time because the road works. So I'm in my car, normal, driving, music on, singing, whatever. And I'm going right. No. The body and the car took me to the left. And that's when I went quiet because I knew that this was intervention. This is divine intervention. Button me mutton. And because it was a Saturday, there wasn't that much traffic heading in that direction. So I was stuck in traffic. I was stuck, but it was only for, I think it was 10 minutes. So it was 3 minutes longer than what it would have been. So it wasn't too bad. And as I've come off the road and I've gone onto the road where the supported accommodation was, there she was. I nearly run her over. And so, I'd stopped the car and I'd seen her and I'd brought her back home. And that is the beauty of intuition. I mean, I know intuition is not personal. I know it's an impersonal part of universal intelligence, and it is impersonal. But praying in tongues was something that it just happened. I think it's because I had a dream that I was talking to Jesus in a foreign language, and I just had this intuitive nudge that was tongues. And then if you've heard my story, a lady touched my arm and she prayed in tongues. And then as soon as I realized that, my God, the drugs have fallen away, all the chaos has fallen away, and I just said, this is Jesus. There was just a knowing. Instantly tongues came. Baby Christian I was just praying and praying. It was a new gift, and I loved it. And maybe that's where a lot of the miracles come from. But I'm not saying that was it, but that was just the experience from here. There's been lots of experiences. There was once, I'll tell you one more story, and I mentioned this when I was talking to David Bingham, when I had the interview with David a couple of years ago. But this one was funny because I'm going to back it up a little bit. With David, I just mentioned it briefly, but I had a mentor, and she was always giving me a spiritual tool, and they are amazing. If you've got these tools, they really do drill, but they don't. You don't self-realize. Well, you're realizing power. That's what you're realizing: power and authority, and you're realizing the supernatural. So you're realizing protection as well, because you're playing the game as a separate self. Well, I was playing the game as a separate self, even though when I say that, there wasn't no agony with it. It wasn't like I'm looking for God, I'm separate. It was lovely. It was amazing being Amanda, finding freedom. And you know what? That's where most of the miracles came from. And it was real effortlessness. It was like living in the kingdom. There was no suffering. Anything I thought of came. So, don't know, all we've got is information anyway. That's all that we've got. So maybe that is the way to live. I'll never know. I don't know. But it was amazing. And it still is amazing. So she's given us these tools. And the one tool that she gave us was from somebody called Robert Scheinfield. Now, I know that I was given that tool because of what the calling for this body mind is. It was to undo negativity. Not everybody has to do that. Some people just transcend it, but this one had to understand it. How did it get there? What is it? Like, I have to do like consultancy with myself. Anyway, this tool. So Robert Scheinfield says that you've got the sun, and that's you, and then he does like a little wriggly line, and he does like a road, and he says that is your field, that's your conscious field, and you've got a pattern in the field. Okay, and then he does a little, well, my mentor done like a little stick person and said, Amanda, that's you, body, mind, you, and that's Jesus, but you are Jesus. It's the self, it's the oneness, and here is your pattern in the field. And so if you've got anything that's uncomfortable, you can smash that pattern. Oh, well, that was it. That was it. Don't tell me to start smashing negativity. That was it. Anything that came up. So if a negative feeling came up, we had a mantra. And I remember my mentor said to do it physically as well, because you do actually feel power. So I remember, so a negative feeling would come up, and she'd say, stop what you're doing. I'd say, right. She said, no, go in. I'd say, I am is the power and authority of God creating this discomfort. And I would do that as if I'm pulling my power out. I would say, I reclaim my power now. Where the story goes, it goes. So I'm surprised I remember that. And the discomfort would be there. It would get bigger. And I'd say, no. I am is the power and the presence of God creating all things. You discomfort, I created you. And now I'm reclaiming my power. And I would pull. And I'd say, where the story goes, it goes. 3 or 4 times, the negativity would transcend into happiness. I'd be like, oh, really like electric. I'd be like, oh, this is good. So I was running around looking for things making me uncomfortable. And then it stopped working. That's what happens. It doesn't stop working, but it's like, okay, drop that tool, move on. So, I don't know, a month later, I've bought this again, iPhone. I'm not promoting iPhone, by the way, but iPhone stopped giving us the plug-in. So if we wanted to have earpods in, we had to have a little extension thing. And I bought another one of those from the EE store, and I think it was £17. And I remember getting the receipt and taking it out the packaging and putting the receipt in the packaging and having it. Less than 28 days after purchasing this adapter thing, it broke. And it wasn't through ill treatment or nothing. I hadn't handled it wrong. And I said, thank God, I've got the receipt and I've got the packaging. So I went back into the EE store and I'd explained to the gentleman what happened. And I said, I don't want a refund. Can I just have an exchange? Because it's just broke. And he went onto the screen and he said, oh no, they said, we can't give you a refund or we can't exchange it. And he carried on reading it. He said, because once the package has been opened, it's non-refundable. And, oh my God, the discomfort. I had a massive discomfort, fear, anger, how dare you, security, all these programs came up and they were overwhelming. And there and then, and I remember there was another cashier and there was another customer in the store. There and then I said, I am is the power and the presence of God creating this discomfort. You discomfort, I created you and I reclaim my power now. And I was saying it to me, not to him. I was talking. And I said, no. I am is the power and the presence of God creating this discomfort. And I reclaim my power now. And I pulled and I was pulling away. And when I'd finished, the man in the shop was just looking, staring at an item. The two behind the desk were as if I didn't exist. And I just felt like everything's okay. Like, there's no problem. There is no problem. There was no embarrassment, because embarrassment came up and I said, no. You're going to I'm reclaiming the power because I'm creating this embarrassment. I'm creating the story saying that these people are looking at me thinking I'm crazy. I'm creating it because I don't know. It's only information. So I'm pulling and I'm reclaiming and then everything's okay. And I went back to the counter and the man looked, he went, hello, madam, how can I help you? And I looked at him and I said, he said, oh, yes. He said, you bought this. Like his timeline had gone a bit, I don't know. Anyway, he looked at the screen and he said, oh, I could have sworn that I'd read that this said no. He said, oh, no, He said, oh, I don't know what's happened. Leave it to the powers that be. Did you say you wanted a refund or did you want a replacement? I said, a replacement, please. And he gave me and I walked out. And that's another magical experience. It's about being bold and courageous. I'm not saying that you have to do what I did. I did that once in a supermarket when this man was kind of like scaring people. He was quite tall and he was with, I think it was his mum, and he was overpowering people, standing close to people, looking in people's faces, and people in the supermarket were a little bit, and he come near me and the discomfort came up and I said, I am is the power of the, and I just said it and the whole shop went quiet. The cashier didn't move. It's like everybody stopped. I don't know what that does. I mean, I don't do it anymore. Everybody stopped. And I said, no, there was still a discomfort. I said, no. I am, and I'm talking to the discomfort, pointing at myself. I'm not looking at nobody. I am is the power and the presence of God creating all things. I created you and I reclaim my power from you. And where the story goes, it goes, meaning I've got no attachments to what happens after this, pulling this thing up. And the man, he just subdued and he stopped. And the cashier carried on serving. Oh, dear me. But there has been one more story. Okay, so there has been a magical story where I haven't done some crazy stuff and I've just been me. Before I moved into this home, I was living in a room and it was in a shared house. I'd moved out of the studio flat. There'd been something that had happened in my personal realm, and I'd moved into a studio, into a shared home. And the landlord, because it was the same landlord, so he was the landlord that I'd met, who I'd had the studio flat off, and then he was the same landlord that had rented me a room. He said to me, Amanda, I have got a 3-bedroom house for rent. He said, but I don't know when it's going to be available. I'm not sure. And I was going through a bereavement. I'd lost my brother. So I wasn't really focusing on moving. I was just there with the family, and, you're going through it and as best as you can. But anyway, while all that's happening, because now, my brother's passed and there's a couple of weeks before his burial, so all the family were all meeting up. So I'm not really focusing on anything other than being there for the family, being that tower of strength, just being there, and them being there for this body as well. Anyway, the landlord kept telling me about, he's got the house, but the person he bought it off had separated from his wife and had sold him the house, and the wife was still there. And he was saying to the wife, listen, this is my house now. And so there was a bit of a to-do going on between the woman that was there, and she had a couple of children. And so the landlord, he said, I'm not going to ask her to, I can't throw her out. I mean, but I'll have to take her to court because I've bought the building and I've bought it for the purpose to rent it out. So anyway, he's telling me about it. While he's doing that, intuition is dealing with me, because in the shared house, every time I needed to use the bathroom, I had to take my toilet roll, because we had to buy our own. And so I'd take my toilet roll and then I'd bring it back, and then I'd take it and I'd bring it back. And then the one day, I've took my toilet roll and intuition said, leave it in here. And I knew it was intuition, and I just left it. I thought, I'm not going to argue. And then intuition said, right, not only that, clean that sink every day, clean the toilet every day, clean the bath every day, and do not complain. And I think part of me was defeated anyway because of going through grief. And so it's the voice of reason. The voice of reason also said, don't just leave that toilet roll in there. Go and buy a multi-pack. And every time you go to the toilet, if it's gone, leave it. Leave the one there. And I thought, I'm not arguing. Because prior to that, I'd had a massive wake-up call with intuition, where intuition had prompted me to do something for my brother before he passed away. And it was that made me know that if intuition, if I'm prompted, I don't care. I don't care what it says now. And I think that was the grounding for this body-mind to really understand the powers that are available to us, and not to manipulate them and, play around with them. So every day I would go in with cleaning stuff, and, there was 6 men that were living there, and I was the only female. They never used to flush the toilet. They'd leave a little parcel in the toilet. They'd leave all stuff in the sink, and I'd be like, okay, roll my sleeves up, didn't complain. And the Holy Spirit said, clean it as though you're cleaning it for me. Mm-hmm. And me meaning the Holy Spirit, Jesus. So I polished, I buffed the sink, I really went OTT. And I remember having a pack of 6 toilet rolls, and every day I'd take one to the bathroom, and somebody would take it, and I would just put it there. And I was also prompted to put some bleach there and some toilet cleaner, spray air freshener, just make it look, do it as if it's yours. Anyway, come the last day, the toilet roll, I only got 1 toilet roll left, and I'm planning in my head, okay, I need to go to the shop and buy another pack. I went to the bathroom, kind of unconsciously, really, just aimlessly. I've gone to the bathroom and I've opened my eyes and I'm like, oh my God, the sink was spotless. The toilet was all clean. It was all bleached and cleaned. There was toilet rolls stacked up neatly. I was like, oh my goodness. And as that happened, the main door, the front door had opened. The landlord come running up the stairs. He said, Amanda, the house is empty. He said, I don't know what's happened. He said, yesterday she was fighting me and screaming, saying that she wasn't leaving. He said, I've gone there today. She's gone. He said, I don't know where she's gone. He said, the house is yours. I didn't have the rent. I didn't have the deposit because just lost my brother, funeral costs and so forth. I didn't have the money. And Holy Spirit said, go and view the house. And I went in. It was perfect. Absolutely, oh my God, absolutely perfect. Front garden, back garden, massive patio doors, newly fitted kitchen, newly fitted bathroom, newly this, newly that. And it was really, really cheap. So the landlord, he said, do you want it? And I said, of course, it's beautiful. And so he said, this is how much it's going to cost. And I looked, I said, I don't have that. He said, but I thought you wanted it. I said, I do. And then I just watched his expression change. And this man told me that his God was money. I remember he said, oh, my God is money. And he used to be proud saying it. And I've got that in my mind. Oh, his God is money. And his expression changed. He went, there's something about you. He said, you must have at least a week's rent. And he got his phone out and the calculator, and it was £126 and something pence. I opened my purse. There was £126 and whatever that the exact amount. And that was the beginning of the humility of walking with the understanding of intuition, because there was nothing in the house. The house was completely empty. The people that had lived there previously, they left like a two-seater and a blanket. I didn't know who the blanket belonged to, but it was there. And I remember that night lying down and just wordless, silent prayer and silent transmission from Jesus, just like kisses from heaven. And within a week, I didn't lift a finger. My sister and her partner were moving, and they had a brand new leather sofa and a brand new vacuum. My mentor's daughter had just moved into a brand new house, and she'd bought a brand new corner sofa, and she said, oh, I don't need it because there's one at the property. Whoever built it, they'd given furniture with it. And all the organising of dropping it off, all of that worked out. My mentor, she said, yeah, I've got you a washing machine. She took me shopping and bought me some curtains and bought me some light bulbs and gave me a single bed. And I just watched everybody come together. I got a coffee table. Literally, my home was, it was so humbling. So utterly humbling. And then I remember dreaming, thinking, oh, I'd love a super king size bed. Oh, that'd be amazing. And then the mind would imagine what it would look like. And I never wanted a bed head. I always said I wanted like a nice thin glass going above the bed rather than having a bed head. And I would dream about it, not obsessively, just think about it like, oh, that would be nice. And then just drop it, not believing or doubting, just playing with creativity. And months later, working as a support worker, there was one service user who was quite difficult to begin with. We had a bit of a rocky start. I wouldn't cross boundaries. I was like, no, this is how it is. And, he was like complaining, oh, Amanda. And then he said, you know what? She's all right. She has got our best interest at heart. He couldn't wrap me around his little finger, but he had done that with previous support workers. And one day, out of the blue, again, no spirituality, no praying into it, just being myself, walking. In fact, I was going to the GP surgery to collect a prescription for one of the service users. And I bumped into this young lad, and he said, Amanda, do you know anybody who wants a brand new super king size bed? And I said, oh. He said, yeah, he does, he used to do patio doors, and this family had ordered this super king size bed only to find out that the dad couldn't, due to a disability, he couldn't get up the stairs, so they had to make his bedroom downstairs. And they said there's no point in having the bed because he'll never use it. Brand spanking new. And get this, they also gave me a mattress topper to go with it. And I was like, oh my God. I said, how much do you want? They said, oh, nothing, you can have it. Like, just have it. I was like, huh? And to get the mattress and the bed and everything from their home, the landlord said, I'm available, I can do it. And when he did it, my partner, who travels, he's always travelling, he works in a different city and he's always travelling, but that particular day he happened to be home, and so the help was there. This is magic. And if I'm honest, do you know, magic, a lot of the time it happened when I was just happy and contented. Didn't matter whether there was awareness, being aware of itself or not, just happy and contented. And so one of the tools that I use now, it's not really a tool, it's more, well, it is, it's an integration, is in this moment, I always say, is there an awareness of being aware? Yes, thank you. And that yes, thank you, after I've asked that, is that, I mean, I'll just be pottering, like now, I'm pottering around the house and I'll say, is there an awareness of being aware? Yes, thank you. No big hoo-ha, just yes, thank you. And then I've just cleaned the bathroom. So I was going around the bathroom saying, am I aware? Yes, thank you. Am I aware? Yes, thank you. Is the I that is aware, is it aware? Just asking silly questions, really. The I questions, but not diving in too much with who's the I, what's the I. No, just am I aware? Yes. Is there an awareness of being aware? Yes. Is anything personal? No. So what's happening then? I am being aware. I am being aware. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. And it's the yes, thank you that prevents or aids the mind to remain awake. Because there is no psychological mind as a separate entity. It's when the mind of Christ, this body mind, when this falls asleep to its true nature awareness, it becomes psychological. So it feels like there's another, because it's like a veil and a imagination and a hypnosis, and then it's the identification with thoughts and feelings and the story. But through the clear seeing that, hold on a minute, everything arises in this empty open field of awareness. And that was the kickstart. And then it was, oh, hang on, the tendency to identify. That's not who I am. I've just seen that. That's another awareness. So you become more and more and more self-realized until you just awake and aware. And you camp in the body of bliss or not. It doesn't really matter where you camp, because there's just this constant knowing of being aware. It's just aware, and it's not in a box. It's just aware. And this is why I promote informationless. Once that's been seen through, once there's been an awareness of being aware, yes, thank you. Anything that comes up, I don't like to cut corners, so I examined everything. I thought, okay, that's a thought, that's a belief, that's an assumption, that's information coming in through the five senses. That's, that is something that could be called past and future, but actually it's universal intelligence coming up as imagination and memory. You know, I was really examining the different functions of what comes up. So a thought would come up, and I would say, okay, there's an awareness of a thought. There's also an awareness of that thought being called a belief. There's an awareness of the thought being a comment. I really did go in and really ripped everything to pieces with awareness, but gently, smoothly, nicely, just so that when I say there's an awareness of thought, it's power, because the thought, everything. And then I said, hold on a minute, it's just information. So now I can say there's an awareness of information, or all things arise equally and effortlessly. Find your roadmap. Find the thing, use the aid that you can use to depersonalize, and just, it's to stop you from falling asleep to what's showing up. And you'll realize that there's tendencies that we think they belong to us because there's a sense of loyalty. These are the things that I found anyway. You might not find them, but that's what I found. And then it was like, oh, so there's an awareness of loyalty. There's an awareness of identifying with the loyalty. There's an awareness of embarrassment because of it. And you just keep hitting it with, there's an awareness of it. And that in a few hours, literally, you realize, oh, it's just information. That those tendencies are just information. You're like, oh, and then it just all lands, and it just becomes really, it just becomes playful. Anyway, that was just a little tip at the end. I hope you enjoyed the magic stories. There are hundreds. There are loads and loads and loads of stories to do with magic. But the main message is, it's to just be who you are, because you cannot not be that anyway. And yes, life is far more effortless when the mind remains awake. Um, it remains awake and conscious of its true nature, which is awareness. Um, the psychological mind is only there when the conscious mind, because there's only one conscious mind, when it apparently falls asleep in this localized body, it apparently falls asleep and wakes up. That's the dance. And it's so that you don't get trapped in that, because it's a game of potential and possibility. We've got the potential and possibility to do anything. So it's to not get trapped in that and to find an aid to start with. Even though it's all a dance, you've come here for happiness. You've come here so that you can experience happiness 24 hours. So when the body falls asleep, there's still happiness. It's just peaceful, joyful, a very light vibration while the body's sleeping. So you get a double whammy. You get to experience deep sleep and you're aware. It's unexplainable. So whatever it is that will help you, give it a go. I mean, I know there's lots of teachings on YouTube, but give it a go. Anyway, I hope these magical stories have really inspired you and uplifted you and influenced you to just be who you are, because you can only be that anyway, and embrace the magic, embrace the playfulness of life, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much. Bye bye.